and you'll see the recording light go on. Hi, I'm Laura Janusik on the ground at the 38th Annual International Listening Association Conference in Omaha, Nebraska in 2017. If you weren't here, you missed some great programs. So what we've decided to do is give you little snippets of about 5 programs that you could have experienced if you were here. And so these are the types of programs that you don't want to miss in the future, that's for sure. I have with me here CP Moreau, who did a program on rhetorical listening in a digital age, which sounds absolutely fascinating to me, CP, but I didn't get a chance to go to your program. So could you give us a 2 to 3 minute synopsis?
Sure. So I come from a very tech-forward university. It's a small private technical college, and they're very interested in developing new technologies and engineering it. And I'm also interested in listening. And so I think oftentimes the conversation is that listening is a counter to technology. And so I thought, well, how can technology help listening? And so to investigate that question, I did a small pilot study where I attempted to look at issues of technology and listening. And the questions I asked in the study were, how can digital media, specifically YouTube, help people listen? And then do those listening techniques that I trained them with prior to the experiment, do they persist when they shift from an audience role to a rhetoric role? So I come from a rhetorical background, so when they move from listener to producer is another way. And so the results show they're preliminary. 2 hypotheses I would use moving forward. One is that digital media, specifically YouTube, can help people listen because it affords more control and it affords more memory. So what that means is I can control the conversation by clicking pause. I can use the timeline to hear things repeated. I can turn on captions if I need. I can increase the volume if I need. And you can't do that in face-to-face conversation. Or I guess there are ways, but they're a little less explicit. And it affords memory controls as well, because I have more cognitive space to listen to the argument because I can pause and turn up the volume and stop if I need to, or hear things repeated. Whereas in face-to-face, you really have to, as you know, it's exhausting to listen for a long period of time. So those were the 2 results that came from the pilot study. And
Cool. I want to go back to your method because I don't. What were your procedures?
Okay, so as I said, it was a pilot study. I only had 2 participants. There were 3 different trainings I utilized, and they come from new media studies and rhetorical theory. And there's actually a 3rd training too that is part of cognitive psychology called Think Loud protocols. So
yes.
Think Louds have people talk while they're doing a task. In this case, it was a written refutation of an argument they just saw. So I picked a deliberately provocative argument on YouTube. It was still evidence-driven, but it was provocative.
What was the topic?
It was about neo-progressives and how they are a bunch of mindless zombies, basically. That was the position of the argument. And so the typical college freshman is a neo-progressive, whether or not they identify that way, they tend to align themselves with that. So taught them on Think Aloud protocols. They were asked to write a refutation of that argument and think through while they were writing the refutation. And then I also taught them about rhetorical listening. So rhetorical listening is a concept from Krista Radcliffe. It was first presented in a 1999 article in College Composition and Communication. And it comes as either a trope or stance. But the main thing to take away about rhetorical listening is it's a way of being open towards a text. And so the text could be another culture, another person. In my case, I'm looking specifically at a text of a new media argument. And then from new media studies, I looked at the breakdown of the audience and the rhetoric, and then also affordance theory. So that affordance theory looks at what technology offers and not just what it constrains us. And so,
Wow.
yes. So there's the presentation I began with a lot of theory talk to kind of situate the work. And then I had the participants actually watch the video that I gave my participants, and we talked about how their listening held up, how they struggled to maintain listening against an argument that they may have conflicted with, and yeah, had a great discussion.
Wow. And kind of what keeps resonating with me is I think you're absolutely right. There are a number of people who think that listening is totally at odds with social media or technology in general. And so you trying to marry and blend the two, because I think we both know that technology isn't going away.
Right.
Right. So if we can find more effective ways to listen in that environment, it's only going to make us stronger.
Exactly. Be open to the idea of listening to technology as a device that can help us.
That can help. Yes, that can help us listen. Terrific. Any last things you would like to tell our listeners as a takeaway?
Well, you should definitely consider coming to the convention next year, or if you need somewhere closer the year after that, perhaps it's a great place to learn and just take part in conversation about something that really matters.
Terrific. Thanks, CP. Signing off.